So, Maria, here we are again. As it relates to your childhood home, I think it's fair enough that I can say that. And we would have spoken about the rumors that are attached to it. But more than anything, what I gather from what you would have shared is there's so much more than that. And of course, you would have shared that maybe, possibly, it's your granddad who really started all of it, right? One of the beautiful things about this story is the fact that you're also opening up this home to give people an opportunity to come and see where you grew up, but more than anything, a part of history, so to speak. Can you tell me a little bit as to what motivated you to take this step?
All right. That's a very good question. So, growing up, spending my 9 years in that house, and I remember my granddad saying that we're building a new house to move across because the National Trust had wanted to make it as a heritage museum or heritage site. So, he said, okay, let's do this. And they decided that they're going to go across. So we built that house, and I spent my last birthday of there, ninth birthday, I would say. And I don't know what happened after then. Well, as you can see now, the house is at a deplorable stage. But there are many people who always been saying, and even with social media, you guys should get the house restored and get it back. So yes, our initial plan was to turn it into a museum or maybe an Airbnb, because now people are saying that we should, expand in that, give people that feeling if there's a ghost or not, which is probably your granddad making jokes. But I believe that because this place is actually in the middle. It's a plantation, I would say. It's a plantation house or a colonial house. And besides, like if we put aside the agriculture for a bit, and we look at the architecture of the house, you can see how many intriguing details on it. You can see from the Demerara shutters to the shingles to even the little carvings that is there. And for a house that is still existing for over 130 years today, as compared to new houses that built, you can give that sense of a heritage tour, architectural tour, and promote that type of, I'd say, colonial heritage tour in general. So it gives people an opportunity to explore that end of it, the architectural part of it, and then research. People love history. People love connecting those dots. And we find that Guyana has many opportunities in that. But then again, how do we, utilize that? How can we get access to that? So being the house is the only colonial house. I would say only colonial, but probably the 100 window house that is still existing, that's still surrounded in the plantation. You still have agriculture going on. It's like a living example of back in the early 1900s, practically. So me now giving this opportunity for tourists to come and explore, it makes my heart feel comfortable and enlightened, and a sense of a softness, because we extend our hospitality now to other people to come into our space, which is a safe space for anybody. Whether you're having a bad day or you just want to explore, you have the nature, you have the history, and you have the agricultural component of it. And so the original or the initial ownership for this plantation was the Hickens, Mr. Edgar Hicken and Victor Hickens, and they basically managed several plantations throughout the country. You have East Lothian, which is this currently where we at. There is Drill Estate, which is situated in Maiconi. Then you had Ibini Ranch, as we know now, it's soya cultivation, and Dananawa Ranch, which of course is famous in Letem. So they spend most of their life in the agricultural industry, from cattle to sugar to aquaculture and rice cultivation. But after Hickens got married to one of the Frasers, her name was Gladys, her siblings, they worked together. I think it's probably 7 or 9. I could be wrong on that part, but nevertheless, so they manage each one of the estates. Back then, everybody's traveling from them because they're coming from Great Britain, let's say. And Guyana was obviously on the go. Several different group of people. We had the Portuguese that were here, then we had the Dutch, and then the British. So during that time, they started with a small house, this particular plantation, a little bungalow kind of roof house, just enough comfortable for them. And then they started to expand the house, and the house got bigger. And if you look at the house, there's, you can see the joints or the attachment, how it's being built. I was told that when they were building the house, they brought wood pretty much from maybe Suriname or another part, because right in front of us we have the coastline. So they brought the wood by the horse, we call it the horse cart or the donkey carts and so on. And that's how they do it. It took them about 2 years to actually complete, 2.5 years to actually complete the entire structure. And we got 100 windows, which is practically for ventilation, to be honest, right? But besides that, Gladys and our brothers, they worked on the estate. Dr. Fraser, who was the first vet in Guyana, he spent most of his life in that Noir Ranch, and that's how you got the cattle trail as well, because they started that. He was a pioneer veterinary in Guyana as well for a crop breeder and the livestock development. So, but unfortunately he died at a young age, I would say. So the responsibility then lies on the other generation of Frasers, which is my granddad, his brother, and his other siblings as well, which manage a different estate. So granddad spent most of his time on this farm, and he used to be between Dananoa and Bushy Park, and likewise the other uncles as well. But he fell in love with this plantation. I don't know for what reason, but I think I understand why. And he continued with the agriculture part of it, component, and of course, he tied it back into the history of the house, because people would come and say, "Oh, you have a beautiful house," and he's like, "Yes, it's my family house," and so on. And it's like, "Let's have a tour of the house," and he's like, "Sure." So he started his little thing of giving private tours to his friends and so on, and then, it become like a natural thing or a normal thing. So every weekend, we would find almost the whole of New Amsterdam would be here. We would have like hundreds of people. Either they're fishing, they're picnicking, they're cooking, they're bringing their family for relaxation. And this is a simple reason. I don't want to be selfish, but in this case, I feel that Berbice doesn't have much in terms to offer for tourism. There's 603 Beach, yes, but people don't want to go there and have this, drinking kind of thing. They just want a peaceful relaxation, very quiet in a nice, comfortable environment. And it so happened that we happen to offer that. So from there on, growing up as a youngster, a young child, playing cricket on the driveway with the friends on a Sunday, and then tired going to school on a Monday. That's where it all started. And we had so much adventures down here, I can say, like right behind you. I don't want to scare you, but we've caught like a 19 feet anaconda. The dog was just there drinking water, and then the anaconda came out, snuffed the dog, and it was like an adventure for everybody. All we heard was like gunshots went off, right? But I remember this guy, Doctor. He passed away recently, but Doc was like, "We don't want his dog to die," so we caught the dog anyways, and that was like a big thing. It went in the news and so on. But from there on, people like the adventure, they like the adrenaline. They hear about the house, but then they want to come, relax, and hear the stories and so on. And then my granddad would probably tell them a bit about, a little bit of the haunted part of it. But coming back to the scary part of it, I mean, as a child growing up, every part, or, you walk in a house, a little creak, you hear a little song, maybe the windows or the wind makes a sing. So you kind of used to get a little goosebumps in between. And I remember the radio. So we don't have electricity. We are completely off the grid. We run on solar now, but back then it was generator. So the generator used to come on like about 8 o'clock in the night. No, so sorry, about 6:30 in the afternoon, and then it cuts off like around 10. My bedtime was like 9 o'clock. But anyways, so I had to walk up the step going upstairs and then going to my room. And before you reach up the step, there's this painting where this is a fiddler, a nice green guy, green looking painting, and he looks at you at every corner. There's this painting that looks at you. This is already creeping you out, right? Anyways, you go and lie down in your bed, and So, these colonial type of bed, the structure and everything is there. And we had nettings because the house had some maribons as well, still have kind of. But in order for you not to get bite, this basically it and mosquitoes and so on. But there's some owls that live in the house, and I think they are the original owners of the house, I would say. They're barn owls. My granddad, they tried to remove it many, many times, but they keep coming back. So he's like, you know what, let's be there. So owls have this sound, and then you're sleeping, and then next thing you see this owl looking up at you like, oh my God, this is insane. So you have that, that little spooky moments in between. Yes.
Haven't we all had that?
Right.
Perfect segue into one of the things that you would have mentioned, and I find it to be very fascinating, is the fact that your grandfather, and I would have mentioned this, that he had quite the sense of humor, but more so he acted upon it to ensure that he continued this haunted, right, the story. So as it relates to that, and of course you having that opportunity to grow up with him and to experience all of that, while the rumors are out there, you're having a ball of a time because it's fun, right? But one of the most interesting thing that you would have told me is the fact that one of the windows of the house had to be closed. And I thought that is very important to share as it relates to why, so that we can have some amount of clarity on that. Can you share with the public?
Sure. So, back in this 70s, 80s, between that period, my great granddad would have worked closely with the president at that time, and it is believed or said that one of the windows was closed down because of the former president's order, which is Mr. Burnham, and he said that only his house could have 100 windows and nobody else house shouldn't have. So we were ordered to close one of the windows up, and it became the 99 windows. It's not a big window. It's a very small window. But back in UK, colonial days, if you look at history, there is if your house had 100 windows, you had that tax law. And then there's also theories that say having 100 windows or more is basically a symbol of status in society. So maybe that was all reasons as to why at that time he wanted one of the windows to close, and because it had 100. And only his house should have that. And of course, he was the president at that time.
Yeah. So that's really what it is.
Correct.
That's the reason behind of it. You have quite an exceptional status yourself, that you have created that name for yourself. But it's very admirable that you would have come back to your roots. When you're talking about your home and this plantation and sharing these childhood memories, it's like you're reliving it all together, because it's so beautiful, right? But why was it that you would have said, you know what, I would have accomplished academically as an individual, I made a name for myself, but I still want to go back home and do something in which, if I dare say, continue some of your grandfather's legacy in the sense of welcoming people into your home? Share with me as to why you would have gone down that road.
Well, so I don't know how to put it over very nicely, but I'll try to. So growing up, right, my background, I had always wanted to do medicine. Medicine was my thing. I was passionate even up to high school and UG. And it so happened that during that, I know home is always home no matter what. But my granddad, he had his degree. He had an opportunity to study overseas. And I found that very nice, because not much Guyanese at that time had that opportunity to go and study. It was very limited, I would say. My mom, she never got to do her degree, nor her brother, but she started to work and so on. And likewise, her brother, which is my uncle. So I spent most of my time with my granddad. And his friends, obviously his friends are older. And I look at them and I was like, when I get older, I just want to be somebody like them, how I can help back my community, how I can give back. Hence, medicine was that part. But that didn't happen, actually. I went to UG, and I love outdoors. I did biology because biology was a prerequisite to get into medicine. I did my degree, the associate degree, and applied for medicine at UG, and I didn't get through. But there was like this inner feeling that said to me that just don't go to UG and do medicine. Like if you want to, go for something good, go out to the country, have that opportunity. So it was always within me to go out and return back to Guyana. Anyways, completed my degree, and I was now thinking, what am I going to do with a bachelor's in biology? How am I going to apply it here in Guyana? Because at that time in 2016, we didn't have that type of opportunities that existed now. And 2017 April, there was a scholarship available for marine science. I did my groundwork to find out if anybody went or did that studies, and I didn't hear any, feedback or anyone in particular. So I told them, and they was like, they supported me in whatever I was going to do. But many people said, when you're going to do marine science, when you come back to Guyana, you're not going to get work. There's no opportunity and so on. I was like, listen, it's something unique. I'm going to find a way to see how it works. I went to China. I spent my 3 years, came back to Guyana, and I had to serve the country that 5 years. But during my studies, I had some free times, and I was like, I read the comments on Facebook. I saw people got interest in the house. We also did have interest in turning the house as a heritage museum, but it was extremely costly to do it on our own, right? So that in me was like, growing up in this house and my granddad's dream, my mother's dream as well, to, all right, let's say the family is to get back the house to what it was back then. So that was like a inner type of feeling, I would say. It's hard to explain, but it was just like something that sits on your shoulder, your mind, like
it was a constant.
You need to do this, you need to do it. Let's just get it done. So of course, they say one dirty does build right? So you got to take your step. And for the last couple of years, I've been mostly in the planning stage. We had people who had extended suggestions and stuff like that in terms of what we can do and how to make it better. And here we are today, pretty much excited to do this launch next week to get this house out into the public. And through that process, we also did our NGO, which is called Lothian Green Guardian, where people now who did mention that they want to donate or help in the process of restoring the house, there is the NGO which they can do that. And they're going to learn more about it because it's going to be published on the social media pages.
What is it that the public can expect when they come here? Yes, they're getting a tour of the house, but it's so much more because it's a plantation. And from what I'm seeing, it's quite lovely. But I'm sure you would have, like you said, you would have had years of planning. So talk to me about those plans.
So once you go to our website and you book the tour, you reach out through any of our social media means. There's two aspects of the tour. You have the heritage tour, and then you have the agro tour. For the heritage tour, you come to the farm. I would say the farm, right? You have lunch with us. So there's a package for that. And then you have a little bit of the cultural experience, the heritage experience, and the storytelling part of it. That tour is approximately 2.5 hours. And we would start from 11 o'clock, but there's flexibility in terms of people time in. So we want to reach out to not just one group of people, but for everybody. In terms of the agro tour, which is a bit separate from the heritage. So you come to the farm, we give you a little prep, a little talk about the house, but very, very brief introductions about it. And then we take you into either the rice cultivation, explain to you about how we farm, the different stages of farming. You have an experience of how the local guys would do the farming. And then there is the other option, which is the sugar cane fields. So we take you into the cane field. You have that sense of feeling being around. Like if you're back in the plantation, you might see a tractor, you might see the guys plowing, you might see they're burning the field, and it all depends on that time of the year that they're doing their farming. But besides that, there's also the experience where you can do a little bit of fishing or crabbing, and I would say, you cook what you catch experience. So in that case is for example, you get an opportunity to make your local rods. I would say. So you ain't going with no fancy fishing rod or
You're
anything.
going back old
Your
school.
old school days, like, you know, when you're growing up, you take a piece of branch or a bamboo, you tie on the string, you cut a piece of your slippers, you have your hook and you dig the worm, and then you just fish. So in our fish pond, you got hassles, you got tilapia, you got patwas, you got sunfish, you got a variety there. So basically, you have that experience of catching and cooking. And then, if time permits, of course, based on person schedule and the season as well, you can get the opportunity to catch crabs, which is a shuriga crab, very tasty and lovely when you cook it in curry. But you get the experience to go catch the crab. You can use your hands, or you can use, let's say, a semi-modern way of catching crab. And then you come back here and we have the fireside, the grill, and you work together as a team. I would say it's like a capacity building thing. So you go back scrubbing your crab. I remember somebody brought her toothbrush to, to scrub the crab legs. But that's that experience. And then after you have this delicious food locally made here, you know, and then you sit and you have that storytelling experience. Maybe that's when the haunted stories might come out. But those are the two aspects of the tours that we're looking at currently.
I would have asked in terms of the government and their role in assisting or putting you in a better position to ensure that this here you maximize all of it, because tourism, of course, is one of the fastest growing sector in Guyana. So had they played a role, and what role did they play in this?
Yes, so that's a very good question. I personally think that the Ministry of Tourism has been supporting me quite a lot throughout this journey. I would say for the last couple of weeks, it was, I would say, quite intense, because we try to get everything up to date, try to get everything good so we can execute this launch. It's been a pending, I think it's from my end, sort of a pending agenda that we needed to complete, because it was 2022 October, if I can remember correctly, and it was the Burmese Expo. And I met some of the guys at the expo, and we were talking, and they said, "Oh, you're related to the Frasers?" Like, "Yeah, I'm the Frasers, you know." And it was like, "We want to come." So I had the two representatives from tourism came, and they loved it. And I'm currently working with the government, so work tend to get a bit hectic, and I kind of put that project on a back burner in a sense, but it was still there. But I felt like this year was the year to start something. So I've been having that help from them so far, in terms of pushing, in terms of marketing and so on. They've been excellent support throughout this journey.
And finally, you dipping your toes in the tourism sector. I'm sure with your family history, it's not the first for you, but it's the first on this plantation. For persons who want to get into the sector, and they may have their own history in their backyard, or wherever it may be, what would be that advice?
It's how you sell the story. I would say it's how you market the story. I believe, like, every person has that rich story, but is that motivation? Not just motivation, your willpower. Because if you sit there and expect that things will come to you in your lap, that's not gonna happen. It's about you getting yourself out there, selling your story, telling people about it, and if somebody finds an interest in it, you never know where you can go, right? I mean, my granddad had this fair share experience back then, and it went from there to where we at now. But I think if you want to do something, you have to put your mind it, set your goals, set it, write down how you're going to achieve it, and you have to be determined and focused as well in order to execute it.
Maria, thank you so much. This was lovely.
Thank you so much for having me. Okay. So let's start from here. This is where we would say the front step, or the first driveway when you come in. There was a step that was attached here, but that fell down, and it connects to this first floor. You come in here. This is the office. I would say my granddad's lookout point. He would sit there with a shotgun from time to time, in case you don't like two persons or so. You just let go a few rungs. But nevertheless, there was a door that you enter here, which was pretty much the hall area, I would say. You had a 14-feet dining table, and there was a lot of swords, a lot of artifacts. You had the brass, Dutch bottles, and many things that you would find in colonial house, Burmese chairs, and so on. There was a next room at the back, which we would call it like the servant room. So people who stayed there and the cooks and the cleaners, there was a room dedicated for them at the bottom. Behind, there was a building which was pretty much the kitchen, but that part fell apart about 3 years ago, completely down. And it had a step, and then was the next step at the back, which my granddad pretty much converted that section into, great granddad converted into his own little lab, I would say, because he was a vet back then. But going up into the third floor, we had second floor, 3 bedrooms. First, which is at the back that overlook the livestock and the sugar plantation. The middle room kind of had a view from both ends, I would say east and west. They looked at the rice cultivation aspect of it, and then the front gives you the view of the aquaculture as well as the pastures. So you see the front door over here. You have the windows as well too. You can, if you notice, on the windows is actually the colonial windows, which is actually called jalousies around. The building got shingles at the front, which was basically made out of wallable. And we have the shutters as well. All of this is pretty much ventilation to breeze to come in. And if you come this way, you'll get a view of what the second floor practically looked like. Had a chandelier, a huge Persian carpet where they had all these fascinated parties and late night balls and so on. They had a grand time. I wasn't permitted to come down during that time, so I used to sneak away and, you know, like take a peep, come down for cream soda or Pepsi. It was glass bottle, it was huge. Or drink the jamun wine as kids. Going up to the step, you had the bathroom and the 3 rooms over there.
Lovely. I know you would have said, Maria, that the long-term goal or your aim is to restore.
Yes. Well, as you can see, the foundation is the most integral part of any building. And the fact that this foundation is over 130 years, it can give me another 100 years looking at it. You can see the beams. Most of the beams are still in good tack. They might be a bit termite infested, but I don't think it's much to be work in terms of that. The structure and the foundation part. The staircase is still practically intact. And it's just a lot of work, but to get this done. But technically, I was told that most important part of restoration is putting a roof over the house back again, because it prevents, rain from coming in, the sun from helping to deteriorate the wood. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah. This also I would have seen. I mean,
well, this here was. I think my cousin, my uncle's son, when he was a child, he put the rope and the tire to swing around and so on. Kids.
It's a whole country experience.
Correct. Yes.
So I know you said you would have been here for 9 years. Where did you spend most of your time?
The whole house, basically.
Yes.
I learned the first time I learned to ride bicycle was pretty much here in the house. But I think I spend most of my time like out in the yard. I'm an outdoor type of person. But if not practically here or in my room was in the middle room. And it used to actually you can see it, the windows right there. I spent a lot of time. There was like a little bed there for me at the corner. And I had like a whole bunch of toys. And there was a hammock and a swing in the room. Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but there was this big swing, I remember. And then there was like my mom's bed this way. Yeah.
What's the history behind of the vehicle?
Oh, that's my granddad's Land Rover.
Yes.
This is a Land Rover that he would take all the kids, everybody into this Land Rover. This is the first vehicle I actually learned to drive as well too. Yeah, stick gear, Everybody know this as, when they see this, they know as Mr. Fraser. He would call himself the sheriff of the tongue because he had this big voice that you could hear miles away, and everybody was like, "Oh, Mr. Fraser, you're here!" And he's like, "Yes, come, let me give you a ride. Jump into the back."
So there are many who would have grown up knowing this, because, like you said, he would have picked up the kids from around and ensured that he got them to school and so on.
Correct.
So, yes, this is the famous.
This is
Land
it.
Rover.
For example, I remember the U.S. ambassador when he was here in Guyana. Well, I can't remember his name, but I was it would be in the early 2000, 2008, 6 around then. He broke down on the road, and back then we didn't have a lot of vehicles transversing the road. So Granddad always had his binoculars and like looking out to see what's going on. And he saw a vehicle out there for a good 50 minutes. He jumped in the Land Rover, decided to drive out, and when he drives on that red brick, you see all like if he's in a safari, that's sort of back. So his feet are gone. He went there. He's like, "What happened?" The guy told him, "Well, they broke down and stuff like that, and they're heading back to Georgetown." So he said, "Oh, well, I'm a mechanic too, you know. Let's bring the vehicle because they had the agriculture party, all the combine and stuff. There was a how to say, a shed with full of men stuff, men workshop." So he brought the guy in here and he offered him his Jumbie juice, and then he was telling the story, and then they had this conversation over the Land Rover. The guy decided that he wanted to come back here, and he spent most of his weekends up on the farm whenever he was free.
So it's fair to say that Granddad was also a jack of all trades.
Yeah, he was that type of guy. He was very agile, I would say, always out and about. He don't like resting. Yeah, never like resting. If he's resting, something is not well with him. Yeah.
You have spoken throughout the interview about your grandfather. I can tell the amount of admiration that you have for him. Tell me a little bit about Granddad, and how old is he now?
So Granddad is 88 years old. I would say he retired when he was 82 years old because it was COVID. And he had a little accident in the field and it hurt his knee. So his mobility is not the best of the best. But apart from that, if he sees somebody, he has this big voice and a powerful handshake. Everybody knows him about a squeeze handshake that he would give them. But he's a lovely guy, very, very friendly, nice fellow.
What are his thoughts on you wanting to revamp here and give it some life again?
Well, I would say he would love the idea because when the plan was to have this house restored and move across, and then the plans failed at that time, and he was a bit down-minded, I would say, and he wanted to tear the entire house down. So he was like very much discouraged. But given the fact that, like I was telling him about it, he was like, "Oh, this is good, this is nice." And whenever he remembers a story, he would tell you some interesting, fascinated stories about it.
So you're getting a first hand in terms of getting these stories, not by reading it, but from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yes, correct.